First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Very interested to see the entrepreneurs in the room. I think I want to talk about trends that have not been mentioned so far, but I think they are the most important trends driving change in the world economy right now. They are the transformation of capitalism from being based on markets for private goods and now becoming markets for global public goods. So one example of that is knowledge. And I believe that your focus on information technology is really a focus on knowledge, of which in the information technology is one aspect. But the other global public goods that define those technological trends are the survival basic needs of the human species in a period in which we can easily become extinct. And there I include the air or the atmosphere, and you spoke about the carbon market of the Kyoto Protocol that I created and wrote in the protocol, water, and biodiversity. Let me mention simply that humans cannot survive more than a few weeks without food. We cannot survive more than a few days without water. And we cannot survive more than a few minutes without air. And yet we are destroying biodiversity, the source of our food, in unprecedented levels, 1,000 times higher than fossil records, destroying life in the oceans. This is our food, incidentally, among other things. We are destroying the oceans and the sources of water, aquifers all over the world, that we need for our survival. And we are also destroying the atmosphere property to keep a stable climate. So the issue of knowledge, as was pointed out before in the previous session, is that to be able to innovate, you have to have passion, yes? And to have passion, you have to believe something is important. And what can be more important than focus on the threat to the survival of the human species? So although I agree with everything that was said, I think it's a little bit, nobody mentioned the issue of the global environmental problems that can terminate with our species. And if we're going to be passionate and deal with important things, it is the knowledge to deal with the destruction of the atmosphere, the water bodies, and the biodiversity, all of which we need for our survival, all of which are now under tremendous threat. Within that, the knowledge requires, in Kazakhstan, two changes that perhaps are within the scope of the government. One, the creation of risk capital, finance, for the entrepreneurs in the room. Risk capital. It's not a question of people becoming being able to manage risk, which is important, but it has to be socially risk capital. And my impression is that there isn't. In fact, I would say there is no risk capital in Europe as a whole. Secondly, you need intellectual property rights. If you're going to create something and it's going to be knowledge, it has to be protected. So these are two things that Kazakhstan could do right away. In addition, so they somehow encourage the formation of risk capital, like VCs, etc. But more directly, risk capital means the type of capital that will encourage knowledge, and the knowledge that is passionate about what's important. And what's important is that we address head-on our concerns for the survival of the human species and the destruction, as I said, of biodiversity, water, and the atmosphere. How do we deal with that? I go back to the transformation of capitalism, and as you mentioned, the fact that we had to put limits on how we're using biodiversity, abusing, same thing about water, same thing about air. Once you put those limits, the flexibility afforded by markets, which is what the carbon market does, create prices. Those prices, which don't exist today, change GDP, change the world economy, change everything. So the world and the companies in Europe are requesting officially to the UN the creation of a carbon price. What this means is that we need to integrate into our markets, which are the foundation of capitalism, a value for those three items, those global public goods, the atmosphere, the bodies of water, and the biodiversity. They have to have a market value. Once they do, and the carbon market is an example, everything changes. The carbon market was created in 1997, signed by 160 nations, became international law in 2005. By 2011, it was already trading $175 billion with B dollars. Since then, since 2005, it has transferred over 170 billion over the period for clean technology projects in developing countries. It's a record. So I'm very proud of having part of that effort with the great people who created the protocol. And I put there the Ambassador Estrada Ochoela, who is the one that negotiated the protocol as a whole. As it turns out, Kazakhstan is outside the negotiation. I wanted to know what is the position in COP21, but Kazakhstan is not there. So I think that the country is in a very good position to work for that cause, because and the creation of three global markets, the market for global public goods, a clean atmosphere, bodies of water, and biodiversity, a transformation of capitalism, a transformation of human values based on new types of markets that are emerging that will happen during this century. And I wish very good luck to all of us.